Hi, everyone. I am really excited for this next session as I see that you all are as well. And a lot of you woke up early to also see this one. I am happy to introduce Shannon Baker. She is the award-winning author of The Dezort Behind Me and the Kate Fox series, along with the Nora Abbott mysteries and the Michaela Sanchez Southwest crime thrillers. She is the proud recipient of the Rocky Mountain Fiction Writers 2014 and 2017 to 2018 Writer of the Year Award. Baker spent 20 years in the Nebraska Sandhills where cattle outnumbered people by more than 50 to 1. She now lives on the edge of the desert in Tuscan with her crazy wine mariner and her favorite human. A lover of the great outdoors, she can be found backpacking, trapezing to the bottom of the Grand Canyon, skiing mountains and plains, kayaking lakes, river running, hiking, cycling, and scuba diving whenever she gets a chance. Arizona sunsets notwithstanding, Baker is and always will be a Nebraska Husker. Go Big Red. And she will be interviewing Ann Cleeves. Ann Cleeves is the celebrated author behind the international television shows Vera, Shetland, and a new series set in North Devon. Her books have been translated in 20 languages. In 2006, Ann Cleeves was the first winner of the prestigious Duncan Laurie Dagger Award for Raven Black, first in her Shetland series. Ann was presented with the Diamond Dagger of the Crime Writers Association and highest honor in British crime writing. 2016, Ann celebrated the publication of 30 novels in 30 years with The Darkest Evening, ninth in her Vera Stanhope mystery. Filming on the popular television series Vera, season 11, delayed because of the coronavirus, resumed in the fall of 2020. There have been 5 seasons of Shetland based on characters and settings of her Shetland novels. Filming resumed in 2021, a television adaptation of The Long Call, the first in Ann's new series set in North Devon, is currently in production. So I am excited. I will bring them up right now. Here we go. And I will let you both take it away.
Well, welcome to the Southwest again, Ann. It's so good to see you. From all the way up to almost Scotland, Northumberland.
Yeah, I'm here in the Northeast and it's sunny. I think the last time we spoke, it was dreadful weather, but no, it's brilliant sunshine. I've been swimming in the sea, which doesn't happen very often in Northeast England.
That's got to be like it's got to be so cold.
It's pretty cold, but very good for us, I think.
Well, you guys are tough. So congratulations on the launch of The Heron's Cry, which just came out this week, like 4 days ago. So that's got to be exciting. You must be exhausted because I see you've been just popping around everywhere. So how's it going?
We've been, because our infection rates are quite stable. I mean, not brilliant, but stable. We're doing more live events now. So, which I love. I love actually going out and meeting readers again after such a long time. But they've been either in big spaces like churches where people can separate out quite widely, or we actually launched the book in North Devon in the town square in Crediton. So people all sat outside wrapped up with rugs and coats. And so, no, it's been lovely. I'm much happier doing that than the tech. So the tech I find tricky.
The weather in North Devon was not like it was in The Heron's Cry, which was hot and muggy, and so that's nice. So I'm surprised North Devon is actually in South England. Yeah. I can't get this right, you guys.
Yeah, well, I guess it's like North Carolina or something, but it's the north of the county of Devon, and it's a seaside place. So it's where tourists come and spend their family holidays. Beautiful, long beaches, little coves.
If you have a lot of outsiders coming in and out, then that's going to be great for your series. You can kill all kinds of people.
Yeah.
So tell us about. Oh, go ahead. The Long Call was the first Matthew Venn book. And our Two Rivers book, and it came out a couple of years, and I love that book. So tell us a little bit about it. Was an Agatha Award winner for Best Contemporary Novel, in 2019. So tell us a little bit about Matthew Venn and his team and how he came about.
Yeah, and how what an honor to be an Agatha Award winner as a Brit. I was just absolutely speechless and very delighted. So thanks to everyone who watched Virtual Malice last year. Yeah, it started because my husband died quite unexpectedly, and I wanted to run away for a bit. And where I ran away to was North Devon, because that's where I grew up. I went and stayed with a friend that I'd known since I was 11, and I never really thought of setting books there before, because it's a bit like Cornwall. It has a reputation for being very cozy and thatched cottages and very picturesque and cream teas. And although I write traditional mysteries, that's not the sort of book that I particularly wanted to write. But I finished writing Shetland, and I wanted to do something new. And just really talking to my friend, and I think this is often where books come from. It's a chance bit of conversation or something that you overhear. We were talking about someone who'd grown up in a very tight religious community, and just the restrictions that had placed on them. And then when they lost their faith in late teens, they would be unfellowshipped and kind of banished from friends and family. And I thought that if that had happened to somebody, that they might find within the police service something of the same sense of community and family and duty and honour and the possibility of redemption that you were missing through membership of the Brethren, this fictional group that I created. And so really that's how Matthew started. And then people say, well, why did you make him gay? I'm a straight woman, what am I doing writing about a gay man? But the people who picked me up after Tim died, who were there when I came back from the hospital and fed me wine, and 4 years on nearly are still supporting me, still looking after me, were a gay couple. And I think they were so much a part of my life then. I was so, in a sense, almost dependent on them, that I started writing about their marriage. And that's how Matthew became gay and married to Jonathan. And also, I think for the plot, obviously, it helped. His sexuality was a problem for his parents and for the group that he'd left. So that's how it all came about.
Oh, I love the relationship you created between Jonathan and Matthew. It's just, I don't want to give too much away because the first book had me on pins and needles, but you really captured that very well, how a married couple, a devoted married couple, navigates through life.
Yeah, I think so. And in the new book, we look at some of the tensions that can happen. We can have very happy marriages, but very few of us have perfect marriages. And there are always, I think, sometimes tensions and stresses, and especially someone with Matthew's background who's still haunted a bit by a lingering resentment that is the way he was treated by his family. And also, despite himself, that sort of sense of guilt that he should have been stronger, he should have been less cowardly, he should have stood up for himself against them. And still slightly awkward about acknowledging the relationship with Jonathan as well. So there's all that complexity in there, and it's very interesting to write about. And I hope I get it right, because I don't want to cause offence, and so the book is always read by at least 2 gay couples before it goes off to the publisher, because I want to get the tone right.
Well, Matthew is so hard on himself. I mean, I loved Vera. I love in present tense. And she's a brilliant detective, and Matthew's a brilliant detective, but they couldn't be any more different. Did you set out to make them different, or is that just how did you come up with character?
Yeah, I think just as I've described, that it's place. I always start with place, and there are certain people come out of certain places. So your introduction, Hailey, described you very well, and we know exactly who you are because of the place where you grew up and the place where you most felt at home. And I think that's the same with Vera, who I can't imagine her growing up anywhere except in the Northumberland Hills, where she's got those great long horizons, and we're looking as far as you can see, to the sea on one side and the hills in the other. And Matthew is very much a product of where he grew up, which was small town, conventional, quite blinkered in a way, quite hostile to outsiders. And here he is, an outsider by nature of his personality and his sexuality, but also because he's an outsider looking in always. So
reviewers have called this series very character driven, and I agree with them. It isn't like Jack Reacher, who never changes and grows. You have, Jen, who's searching for a lot of things. And she's very clear about, I don't want to be alone the rest of my life. And you've got Ross, who's got his own issues. He's kind of a prig, but he's not essentially bad. So when you set out to write a book, do you set out to do characters? What makes you want to write characters as opposed to, just action plot driven?
I think I'm just very curious about people. So I don't set out to do anything really, except to tell the sort of story that I'd like to read, because I don't plot in advance. I don't plan in advance. I just start, and the people grow in my head as I write. I've obviously got a very strong sense of the central character, especially after having written one book about him. And I did want this to be much more of an ensemble piece. So there are a big number of returning characters in this book. There's Jonathan, not just the police team. There's Jonathan, there's Lucy Braddock, who has Down syndrome, and her dad. And I hope that they'll return. There, as you say, there's Jen Rafferty, who married too early, had children too early. The relationship became abusive. She left her husband with the children, and now they're teenagers, and she's just desperate for all that excitement that she missed out on when she was younger because she married too early. So she parties big style. She wants a man. She's quite predatory. She's quite promiscuous. And so all that is going on as well, I think. And as I continue to write, because I do want to write more of the Matthew Benn books, then I'll get to know them better and we'll explore them. And I sort of set little threads going. So we know, for instance, that Jonathan was adopted and hasn't met his birth parents, and maybe that's a thread that we can go down at some point. And there is the start of reconciliation between Matthew and his mother, and we might develop that later too.
So let's go back to this plotting thing, which I find incredibly disturbing and like magic. So you don't plot. You've said you just sit down and write. When you sit down, what do you know before you start your book?
I know where it's going to be set. That's the first thing. I have maybe a tone or a voice. It's quite hard to explain, isn't it? A kind of atmosphere, the sort of book that I want. I've just started a new Matthew Benn, and I feel that it's going to be much more jaunty, kind of piratical. That's what it's about. And I've just finished a new Vera, which is about old people, really, approaching death and how they come to terms with it. So I know that I've got a sort of rough theme, voice, tone that something that I want to explore. And then I just start. And because I write very traditional murder mysteries, I know that I'm going to start with a body quite soon. And then there's a limited number of suspects. And then there's some kind of resolution at the end. So actually the framework is there. I think it was Katrina McPherson who said that format of the traditional crime fiction is like a corset that holds you up. It's not a straitjacket that constrains you, but to have that structure there. And I would say to any aspiring writers, if you struggle with plot, write crime fiction. Because I always knew that I was quite good at writing character, but I thought I was going to write a great work of literary fiction when I started out. And I created these people who I think were fairly interesting. But you couldn't just have them sitting around in a room chatting. Something had to happen. Until I murdered one of them, I didn't know what was going to. And once I murdered one of them, that was it. We're just up and off and running.
So you don't know when you start who did it.
I don't know who the victim is when I start. So the long call starts with a body on the beach. And I had Matthew in my head. I knew a bit about Matthew when I started writing it. So in that book, we start off with Matthew standing outside his father's funeral, and he's not sure whether he's brave enough to go in. And then he gets a phone call, and there's a body on the beach. And at that point, I don't know who the body is. So I need to find out. So I make one of the police officers find a shopping list in the jacket. And it's written on the back of an envelope. And there's an address on the front of the envelope. So then I need to go and see where that address is and who's there. So I have to write the next chapter.
Oh, I think it's magic, and I apparently the way you create characters is magic too. So you were, so the Vera series. You've said that, and when I read the first Vera book, I can't remember the name of it.
The Crow Trap. Yeah.
I was thinking Blackbird, but then I thought Raven Black. I don't know, whatever. But she doesn't show up till a third of the way through the book. No. And now you're on book 10. You just turned into 10? Yeah. Yeah,
just finished 10. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that was because of a very young editor who thought that crime fiction was over. Nobody ever wanted to read detective fiction anymore because the genre was dead. And so what she wanted me to do was write a big book of psychological suspense, but it wasn't supposed to have a detective in it. So I started writing a book about these three women who were working on an environmental scheme in the Northumberland Hills, and I thought I would tell the story from each of their points of view. One of them would die. I wasn't told I couldn't have any murder, just that I couldn't have a detective. But then a third of the way through, I got really, really stuck. And I think it was Raymond Chandler who said, if you're stuck with a book, have a guy burst through a door with a gun. Well, I'm British, so I don't do guns. But I thought I would have a door burst open and see who came through. And who came through was Vera Stanhope. And at that point, I had her name. I describe her as looking more like a bag lady than a detective. I have her carrying all her notes and files in a plastic carrier supermarket bag. And that's how she started. And luckily, the young editor married a music journalist and went off to Australia. So I was allowed to write more.
So you are really known for writing very strong settings. And since most of the people here are writers, what can you tell writers about setting and using setting to drive your story?
I think setting does far more than we realize when we start off writing, because setting will influence character, obviously, because we're a product of the places where we grew up and the kids we played with in the street and what we saw out of our window. But it affect, in Northumberland, you might be a sheep farmer. In North Devon, you might be a sheep farmer, but you're more likely to be selling ice cream or running a cafe or running a restaurant, and that will affect who the people are. It's just simple things like the names. Names are regional, certainly in the UK, and I'm guessing in the US too. And so that tells us a lot about the people. It affects dialogue. I don't write in dialect, but there is something about the rhythm of speech, so I will go and I'll listen to people talking before I start writing. And I don't have to when I'm writing a Vera book, because I hear it every day. My grandkids have got Geordie accents, so I can hear them. But yeah, I'll go and I'll listen to people speaking, and I'll listen to what preoccupies them. My research isn't sitting in a library, it's sitting in a cafe or in a pub and just listening to people speaking, because you can find out then what matters to them and what is likely to, and that will help trigger a plot idea, I think.
So you've written 35, 36 books published. I don't know how many you've written.
Yeah, about that. I think next year's going to be a big one because it'll be my 30th year of being with this publisher, with Pan Macmillan, with my British publisher. So we're going to have lots of parties. I'm going to want cake and fizz. I'm going to need champagne for that. But it's also, it will also be the publication of the 10th Vera novel. So yeah, it's a bit special. But for 20 years, I made no money. For 20 years, I was published, but had no commercial success at all. So
tell us the story. Tell us the story how that Vera book got picked up.
Yeah, well, commercial success started a little bit before that. So for 20 years, I was published, wrote a book a year. I'm sure there are lots of people like that who are part of this group. And it was, it was okay. I loved doing it. It was great practice because I was writing without any of the pressure that comes from, I didn't feel any need to write a bestseller because there was no expectation to do that. So I just carried on writing and loving it. But then I think that the book that really changed my fortune was Raven Black, the first of the Shetland books. And I think that wasn't because it was particularly a much better book. Thank you. It's not that. It was that it was set in Shetland, again, a place that I knew very well because I'd lived there and had known it for 40 years before I started writing the book. And it was just at a time when Nordic noir was becoming a big thing, certainly in Europe. Henning Mankell was huge. Stieg Larsson. And Shetland was as close to Scandinavia as you can possibly get. It's closer to Bergen than it is to Edinburgh. It's 13 hours by boat north of Aberdeen. So, it's a long way north. And I think that just triggered people's imaginations, really. And so, it went on to win the Gold Dagger. And
I was just going to say, let's mention it won the Gold Dagger, which is, if you don't know in the United States what the Gold Dagger is, it's like an Edgar. It's huge.
Yeah. It's like the Oscar of crime writing. It's pretty impressive. And it's very rarely won by a middle-list author. It's either someone who's been established and successful for quite a long time, or it's for a new debut author who's got a very fresh take. So totally shocked to be shortlisted for that, and that really changed my career because I started. That was that was published in the States by St. Martin's, and I'm still with them now. So I've been with them a long time too. And it was bought up in Europe and Scandinavia and started selling more widely. But the best bit of luck, I guess, was getting onto television. It's a big deal, isn't it? And one of my books was in an Oxfam shop, a thrift shop in North London, and someone went in to get something to read on holiday and picked up The Crow Track because it's quite a chunky book. And nothing at all unusual in that, except that she happened to be the books executive for ITV Studios, and they were looking for a series with a strong female lead for a Sunday night drama. That's how it happened.
That's so exciting. Serendipity.
Every crime writer in the UK now donates their books to that.
Of course they do.
Second-hand bookshop.
So I'm going to take a moment here. Here is Ann's latest book. Is it backwards for you guys too? It's backwards when I'm looking at it.
No,
anyway,
I can see it.
There is. This is The Heron's Cry. There's a buy button right below me, right below our screen. Go to the Poison Pen. The Poison Pen is sponsoring us today, and they are giving Ann's book just today only 20% off. So do everybody a favor. You're going to love this book. It is so good. So,
thanks very much.
It is so good. I can't wait till the next. I shouldn't say this because being a crime writer, I don't read that many series. There's just so many books, so many time, so little time. I read here and there. But this one's a keeper. I'm reading all of these. I just love Matthew, and I love Jen, and I love Ross. So you've done something wonderful. I'm really excited about that.
Thank you.
So tell us about, since we started into TV, how does it feel to see your characters put on TV. I also want to mention that the Two Rivers series, the Matthew Vinn series that we've been talking about, is ready to go. It's in the chute, and it will be launched soon in the UK and probably on BritBox, I think.
Yeah.
But,
no, it's that's wrapped, and the first episodes are finished, and I'm going down to see with the cast and crew screening next week. So I'm actually going to see the first episode, which will be fun. Yeah, I'm really excited by it because it's made by the same production team as made Shetland and Vera. So I trust them. You know, they've done all right with those two, and I think they read the books, they get the books, they take the books seriously, they go and look at the places, they film in the places where the books are set, which is quite expensive. So I think I'm delighted by that. But I think there's a real commitment within the team to get this right. So the actor is Ben Aldridge. He's gay. He comes from Devon. It's a really important project for him to have a central character in popular drama who's unashamedly gay in a relationship. It's not a big deal. The book isn't about that, but he's there, and there's a real fierce passion for his partner. The director is also gay, and again is completely committed to the project. So and the list of actors we have in this show maybe don't mean so much to you, but Juliet Stevenson, who's a fine theatre actress, Martin Shaw, who's been in loads of stuff, Anita Dobson, who again does a lot in the theatre. So some really high classy actors playing these parts.
Oh, that's so exciting.
Yeah.
So have you liked the way, do you have a whole lot of input into the TV series, or that you just give them their stories and off they go? And do they follow your plot lines? Yeah,
usually they follow the plot lines, but I'm much less bothered about that than about a general essence or atmosphere. So the one thing we always do is to take the team to the places where the books are set. So again, that isn't always done. So the script writer and the production team will come and we'll drive around Northumberland in a minibus if there's a new writer or director, just so that they get a sense of where we're filming and again where the characters come from, where the stories come from. We took them up to Shetland. The script writer and the producer and the director came up to Shetland, and I took them out for a meal with a Shetlander, and we went and talked to the Coast Guards. And so again, it's that putting the proper research in to start. And the same with North Devon. A friend of mine in North Devon took the script writer and the director and producer around and the execs, just to get a sense of where this place is and where the places in the books are. And I think what the books and the shows share, it's almost a kind of ethos. It's even a morality, I think. It feels like that yes, they're tough. Yes, they're seeking after justice. Yes, they're dogged. But there's a kind of compassion at the heart of them, I think, which is why especially Vera is so popular. They never do gratuitous violence against women. You very rarely see anything graphic, but it's still, I think, quite subversive and quite challenging to people, some of the subjects that they tackle in the original stories as well in the adaptations of the books. So I just think I've been amazingly lucky. And because of that, and right from the start, I decided that I wouldn't meddle. I've seen people get so wound up and so anxious because their books are changed. And it seems inevitable that books are going to be changed. Characters are going to be cut. Plot lines are going to, just because of the nature of the beast. And so I decided that once I trusted the team, I would hand the book over. And I always say it's a bit like giving a child for adoption. You don't hand it over lightly. But once you've done it, I really don't think you have any right to meddle. I think I love writing the book, so I've got this very clear vision about what's happening with the books. But so do the director and the producer and the scriptwriter. They have a very clear vision for what they want to do with the drama. And if I'm saying, oh, my character wouldn't do that, no, my Vera doesn't look like that, then that muddies their vision, and it's going to be a very much poorer drama, I think.
But you have a close collaboration with Brenda can't say her last name.
Brenda Blaffin. Yeah.
Thank you. So you guys are pretty tight about what Vera would or would not do. So that's
I think that's though because Brenda, she worked with a director called Mike Lee for Secrets and Lies and Little Voice. So that's her background, and his way with working with his actors is that they create a character who's separate from them. It's not like the method where you use your own experience. It's creating this character that's separate from you. And her way of doing that is to read the book. So we always send her a proof when the book's out. She always reads it. If she's got any queries, she'll come back. She's so supportive and so generous. So she did come to Malice Domestic with me, and we had the best time. It was a bit shaming because, my cues were about here to there. Hers were out the door around the block. She was signing for all that.
Yeah, I signed next to Hank Philippi Ryan one time.
Yeah.
It's ugly. And just as an aside, in the Two Rivers series, Matthew and Jonathan being gay is not this huge thing. It's just a normal thing. Yeah. And I like that. This isn't a book about gay people,
no, not at all,
going through the world. It's just mainstream and normal. So yeah. Let me take a question, because I know people are asking questions and they're getting frustrated.
Yeah.
What's the most difficult aspect of ending a successful series? So Shetland ended. So
Shetland ended. I think it ended quite kindly, but I think I'd done enough writing about Shetland. It's lovely, but there are only 23,000 people who live there. I think I'd explored everything that I wanted to explore there, and it's really nice to be able to go back now and visit it as a friend to go and visit friends, or to just go for a holiday rather than go researching a book. So that's lovely. And I'd already decided to end the series, but then when Tim died, we were so connected with the islands, because I met him there when I was working in Fair Isle. He came as a visiting bird watcher. He proposed to me there. We'd been backwards and forwards so many times together, had such great times there, that I was really glad that it was over, that I decided before he died to let it go.
Isn't that where the bird observatory is, that you have you want to tell us a little bit about that philanthropy?
Yeah, that's where I dropped out of university. So and I needed a job, and quite by chance, chatting to somebody in a pub in London, he said that he was going off to be a warden in a nature reserve in Shetland. And he was moaning a bit because it was cold and windy, and he wasn't sure he'd made the right decision to go. And I said something like, I wouldn't mind spending a summer in Shetland. And he said, well, if you're serious, they're desperate for an assistant cook. And they must have been desperate, because I couldn't cook and I didn't know anything about birds. But off I went and loved it. And yeah, my husband came that year as a visiting bird watcher, and I must have done all right on the assistant cooking bit, because they had me back as head cook the next year. And Tim came again and worked on the island for a bit. And then, But yes, the observatory burnt down quite just a freak accident. Nobody was hurt. Nobody was in there. The warden and his family were at church, and it was out of season, so there were no other people there. And they're trying to rebuild it. So I'm patron of the rebuilding of Fair Isle Bird Observatory, and everything that I make, so all the royalties I make here and in the US from sales of Blue Lightning, which is the book that's set there, are going to the Rebuilding Fund. So if you'd like to press on the button and buy Blue Lightning, then you'll be donating to the observatory in Fair Isle.
Okay, so our listeners want to know what mystery writers had the biggest influence on you?
I think it was books that I read in translation. So Simenon, who writes the Maigret books, and if anybody wants to be a crime writer or a mystery writer and you've never read him, then you should. His books are very tight, very slender, very spare. But in one sentence, he can set a character, he can move the plot on, and he can give you a sense of place. He makes his words work. Every word has a job to do, and he does it beautifully. So I would certainly read those. And again, the Scandinavians like Henning Mankell, I loved. So I suppose books in translation, but then I love Laura Lippman, who US writer, and I was quite, I suppose, influenced by the golden age British writers, not so much by Agatha Christie, because I think she's quite cold and ruthless. She kills off schoolgirls without a thought and has serial killers. But people like Dorothy Sayers and Marjorie Allingham were real influences. And then more recently, John Harvey, Ian Rankin, which made me see that I could explore issues of social justice and what was going on in the contemporary world, as well as telling a good story.
And let's see, Shelley wants to know what made you choose eczema in particular as a physical trait for Vera?
I just thought it was something visible. So people say, oh, I am accused of being fattest and of caring too much. And it's never me saying those things. It's other people that she bumps into who underestimate her because she is so big and she doesn't have very good skin. So I suppose it's more about how we judge people and underestimate them. And Vera is very happy to be underestimated because she always proves them wrong in the end. And of course, Brenda Blethyn is so elegant and scrubs up very nicely. She does look very different from the character in the book.
So, what is the craziest thing you've ever done in the name of research?
Oh, goodness me. You see, I don't do that sort of research, and I just phone people up. So crime writers are very friendly, and I think it's easier for us in the UK because we're smaller. So we all meet at Harrogate, and we all meet up at least once a year. And through that, I met a wonderful forensic pathologist called James Grieve. So if I'm struggling to know, for instance, if you could, as in the Heron's Cry, stab somebody with a bit of hand-blown glass, would that kill them? I'll phone James and he'll tell me exactly in great detail. So all the detail there came from my contact. And I've got a CSI friend, and all of whom I met through other crime writers, really.
So when you take a break, first, let's go back to what is your writing routine like? You say you put out a book a year. How is that accomplished?
The books usually come out in September here in the US and in Australia. So when things aren't like this, when the world is back to normal, I'm usually quite busy. So I'm out doing events here. Usually come to the States once a year if I'm allowed. Sometimes go to Australia. So I'm traveling around quite a lot in the early autumn. So I'll focus on a new book just after that. That's when I start writing. My routine is to work very early in the morning. So I usually wake up about 5 o'clock and drink lots of tea. So I'll take one cup of tea back to bed, and then I'll get up, and that's when I write best. It's before breakfast at my kitchen table. And I can't do more than about 1,000 or 1,500 words a day, because I start to lose concentration after that. I don't know about you, but I feel that focus and concentration is what we need as a writer, perhaps more than imagination, really. Because if we can't hold the world that we've created in our head, then we can't expect the reader to live it and understand it. Yeah, so I'll do about 1,500 words, and then I'll go for a long walk. And in the afternoon, it's doing more mundane things like answering emails and
taking care of business. So, as an American, I'm always appalled, because it's in all of the books of yours that I've read. They are drinking huge amounts of coffee, but more than half the time it's instant. Yeah. So how, again,
we're getting a lot better about coffee here. You're getting a lot better about coffee.
So when you make your tea in the morning, you don't just dip a tea bag in it, do you? Tell me how you make tea.
But it's good. But it's a good tea bag. It's Yorkshire tea. It's a very nice tea. So yeah, I do have a tea bag, or I'll make a pot. But I'll make a pot. But that would be best, not with loose tea. I'm not a drink snob. Yeah.
Well, I'm
except
I'm
about beer.
Oh yeah. What's your best beer? What's your favorite beer?
We've got some really good little breweries here. So there's one called Shuggy Boat Blonde, which is lovely. Shuggy Boat is like a swing boat that you get on the fun fair, and the local name for that is a Shuggy Boat.
I am partial to blonde beers myself. So let's take some more questions, because they're coming in. They probably don't want to know about beer.
I've just seen an author who influenced me, but didn't. It was Henning Mankell, Pam. So it was Georges Simenon, the French writer, and Henning Mankell.
Okay. Let me see. Can someone put the books okay? Most likely showing my lack of knowledge on dialect, but Vera uses pet and love so much. Is this part of the area, or does she just forget names?
Bit of both, I think. But pet is very much a Northeast thing. So it's a kind of stereotype. So we call people who live here Geordies. So if you've watched Grantchester, Geordie in Grantchester is called that because he comes from the Northeast, and that's his accent. And pet is just what we call people. And she calls people love as well. But I think it's also a way of undermining them, because it makes them feel she'll call especially quite aggressive people pet, a sort of making it almost as if she's being quite motherly towards them in an ironic sort of way.
So you have one of the best author websites I've ever seen. It is so much fun. You've got there's a fiddle player on there that you contracted to write a piece for your books.
Oh, that was lovely. That was a farewell to Jimmy Perez tune. So yeah, she's written a really lovely bit of fiddle music. She's a Shetlander, and we commissioned her to write this tune to say goodbye to Jimmy Perez. And it makes me cry a bit when I hear it. It's very lilting. And she uses a grace, the grace that you say before meals, from Fair Isle to get the rhythm to start it off. So we actually hear the words of the grace, and then that sets off the rhythm. If you're into music, into traditional music, go and have a look.
It's great. And then you have many mysteries that use the characters from your books, and you've written up a script, and so you can have parties and people can figure out who the murderer is, which I never have been able to do, but so that's a lot.
Yeah, no, they're available to anybody who wants them. I wrote them first for libraries because I was getting lots of invitations to go and visit libraries, and I'm a great supporter of libraries, but I couldn't go everywhere. I needed some time at home, and I need to write, and I've got all these grandchildren that I need to look after occasionally. So those are up there for anybody to use, and all you need is 4 people prepared to be suspects and someone to host it. and you get your own murder mystery, and it's all written, and they just read the parts, and then there's a confession at the end. And if you can't find people to do the readings, also up there is we got 4 actors during COVID because things were very tricky and people weren't getting together, so that we got 4 actors to actually read the parts for us. And we've got those videos and then a confession, so you could even just download the videos and do it remotely. If a group of you aren't wanting to meet in each other's houses, you can do it remotely.
So on your website, I read a letter that you had written to yourself, to your younger self. And I got to tell you, I teared up at the part where you said, don't worry so much now. You're raising kids and you're living all this life, and you might not have as much time to observe people and write your books as you want to. Don't worry, because this is, you're living it now, and later you'll have time to observe it, which was brilliant. But what other advice would you give to starting writers, even if they're not youngsters?
I would say read a lot. You'd be surprised how many people want to write and don't read, and you can't do it. My friend, the great Val McDermott, I heard her say in a group, deciding that you want to write and you don't read is like saying you want to be a furniture maker and you've never seen a table. So there is that, you do need to know what other people have done to get an idea of the shape and the form of it. So read a lot, and to find out the sort of book that you enjoy, because there's no point at all writing for the market. The market will have moved on long before you finish the book. You need to write the book that you would love reading, because then you'll put your heart and soul into it and you'll actually believe it, I think. So that's the first thing. The other thing is get to the end, because lots of people start and then it's much safer to polish the beginning again. So they'll rewrite the first chapter over and over again. And it's not going to be perfect when you start off. It's not going to be perfect. My books are never perfect. When I start off, I think you've got a blank screen. You think, this time I'm going to write a really good book. And about 2 paragraphs in, you've already missed that. So all you can do is write the best book that you can. And so, but just push on, get to the end. And then you've got a framework that you can go back and rework and polish and edit.
Because you don't plot, do you have an extensive amount of revisions?
Yeah, not as much as you would think. I think because I've read so much, and because I'm knocking on and I've read a lot and written a lot, that I do have a sense of the shape of a book now and how it might hang together. I think it's a bit like a stand-up comedian telling a joke. You know how to pace it. And I think that pacing the action is something that new writers struggle with as well. They want to put everything into the first few chapters, and then you're left with this huge book left to write and nothing really to put in it. So it's just how you pace it is important. And I'm getting a lot better at that now. So there aren't as many. I tend to rewrite as I go along now too, and then go back and do a proper edit.
You're involved with a project with bibliotherapy. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how it's progressing?
Yeah, it's really magic. We're calling it Reading for Wellbeing, which seems a bit less sort of posh and off-putting than bibliotherapy. I was asked to give a speech at a conference just before lockdown. Public Health England were doing a conference about health inequality, and they had me on as a light relief to tell stories. And so I told stories about when my husband was ill, and what helped me was reading. I was losing myself, escaping into fiction. And I threw out a challenge at the end and said, I'll sponsor 2 project workers and we'll do a research and we'll see if reading does help. But if I sponsor 2, can you match fund it? And then it was lunchtime and people just came up to me, and GPs came up to me, because we have something called social prescribing. I don't know if you have it in the US, but that's when family doctors can prescribe membership of a gym for free, or they'll prescribe, if somebody's obese, don't give them pills. Let them go to a gym, or they'll prescribe referral to help with alcohol addiction, and especially in more deprived areas, something like 40% of the people who go to their family doctor don't need a doctor's help. What they need to cure their depression or their anxiety is help with their housing or their bills and some doctors' practices now have a whole team of project workers who will work with that. So what we're doing is adding to those teams reading project workers who will prescribe a book that is funny or laugh out loud or is just a pacey thriller that people can lose themselves in, or a book that's set somewhere entirely different, or it might be something that helps them explore their illness or what's going on in their life. And it might be, I think, especially after lockdown, loneliness is a big problem for people. So it might be membership of a library reading group, or membership of a specialist reading group. Lots of babies were born during lockdown, and those parents didn't have the chance to take the babies to baby and toddler groups or to meet up with other mums. So it might be that a reading group for young mums or young parents and children might be what's needed. It's not about, taking literature to the great literature to the masses. It's about finding a book that's right for you and that can take you out of yourself for a bit. And we now have, after me sending out that invitation, we now have, I think, 9 project workers working over 4 local authorities. And we're launching it officially next week on Tuesday. I'm going along to the big launch. We've commissioned some proper training so that everybody will get an idea of what putting readers first actually means. And we, more excitingly, I think, the group of academics who are looking into the project have got a major research fund. So we will be able to evaluate whether it works, and then we can roll it out over the country. But think what we're saving our National Health Service. If people aren't being prescribed opiates or painkillers or pills because they've got other ways of coping with their sadness or their anxiety.
And we know it works. We know reading works. We've all done it. We're here and because we're writers, we know that reading is magic.
Yeah. So that's that. I'm really, really thrilled. And it wasn't me that did it. It was these amazing professionals, library staff, doctors, Public Health England officials all came together and made this work. And they've got a steering group, and we've got leads in all these different authorities, and it's amazing.
Well, you say it's not you, but you were instrumental. So.
Well, I think as writers, we know that the ideas are the easy bit. How many people come up to us and say, "I've got this brilliant idea. If you want to write it, and you can just pay me half your..." But the ideas are easy. The ideas, it's the turning that idea into 100,000 words of a novel that's tricky. And it's the same, easy to say, let's prescribe books on the NHS. But it's those people who are actually physically on the ground who have to make it work that are doing the tough bit.
That's great. So you've got the Vera series, the Shetland series is retired, and you've got Matthew, or Two Rivers. What are you happy with these 2 series now, or you got something in the works?
Yeah, people who loved Shetland on television, they will be back. They've finished filming 1 series, and that should be on, I think, before Christmas. So look out for that. There's more Vera. Yeah, I love alternating series. So I like coming to the end of 1 series and thinking, oh, that's great. I can go back home and go and spend a bit of time with Vera now. Or, oh, that's good. I've just finished with Vera. It's an excuse for a trip down to North Devon and spend a bit of time with my friends there and try and work out a plot for,
Okay, so The Heron's Cry is out now, just this week. Everybody go pick it up. Make sure that we get Anne a huge launch, because she's spending her time with us today. Tell us about the next Vera book, because that's the next one you have coming out, right?
Yeah, I'm just working on the edits for that now. So as I said, it's about a reunion of people who've known each other for 50 years. So they were at school together. So they're in their 60s. They've come back together. They probably know each other better than anybody else. They're as close as family. And every 5 years they meet up in this. It's like a retreat house, and they have the same ritual of what they do every weekend. And of course, one of them dies. But I think it's about people having to come to terms with their own mortality, and whether you can actually keep secrets hidden over a long time, and about that power of friendship, that the friends you make when you're 16, 17, 18, if they last for 10 years, they're likely to last forever, and about the real strength of that. And I think that came about again because it was a book written during lockdown, with Zooming people that I'd been at school with and reconnecting. And actually, I think a lot of us did that, finding it was just like we'd never been apart. You know, it's just like we're still friends after all these time, and we've got the same sense of humor, and we're catching up, but we're also remembering school plays that we were in, and the dreadful teachers and the good teachers, and the people that we people that we knew then.
Well, Jack wants to know what you're reading now.
I am I'm not sure if I can say this because it's all very. I'm reading the Hillary Clinton Louise Penny proof that I got sent. That I had to. That I got. That I had to sign a form saying that I wouldn't tell anybody about it, so I can't speak about that. But I've just finished Scrublands, which is not Scrublands, a sequel to Scrublands called Opal Country by Chris Hammer, which is fabulous. And it's a bit like Jane Harper's The Dry, so it's an outback Australian novel, hard-hitting, but really character-driven. And I love the two detectives in it. And I'm hoping it'll be the start of a new series.
Are you a fast reader?
Yeah, I read a lot. I can't go to sleep unless I read for an hour or so. So I read a lot, often in bed, but when I'm up as well.
I'm the slowest reader, so I have to really commit when I pick a book. So this has been. Oh, go ahead.
No, I'm just going to say I'm not. I used to have to finish everything that I started, and I don't now. If I'm not getting on with a book, I'll give it a couple of chapters, and if I'm not getting on with it, I don't feel guilt-ridden for not finishing it.
That's great. So, what do you do for relaxation when you're not writing?
I walk. I can't run. I can't do any of the vigorous exercise, but I can walk. And I usually walk, I don't know, because I live by the beach. There are lots of really lovely walks. So, yeah, I go out and walk. And that's when you churn the ideas over for the next day's writing as well.
Okay, well, go out and enjoy the sunshine while you've got it today. Thank you so much for coming and joining us today.
Thanks for inviting me, and thanks for all your wonderful, the members. I can't wait. I will be there in person sometime. I can't wait.
I hope so. Come down to Tucson for the book festival next week.
I would love to do that.
Okay.
All right. Thank you
for the
so
great
much.
questions.
Oh.
Well, thank you so much, Shannon and Anne. I am going to close you out now. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you guys for all of the questions. Remember that you can order Anne and Shannon's books over at The Poisoned Pen. Just click the button right here. The next session we have will be The Road to Success with Isabella Maldonado, Pung Shepherd, and it will be moderated by Sarah DeVilo. So I look forward to seeing you all into the next session.